What is up, guys? It is Jacob from QuadHunting, and this is the 2016 Detroit Lions season recap. Let's show some love. Welcome to Detroit. So for all the fans who want to say that 2016 was a bad season, I'm going to disagree with that one very much. I don't think it was a bad season at all. I know 9-7, losing in the wild card as a 6th seed was not something. It's not something you usually like. Ooh, wow, it's awesome. But considering where we were at the beginning of the season, you know, everyone was talking about how the Lions are going to be one of those basement teams. They weren't going to be very good. I at one point during the season, when the team started off 1-3, had said the team might win 4 or 5 games the rest of the season. So to finish out 9-7, make the wild card, make the playoffs when everyone had considered you done and out of contention before the season even started, I consider that good. The only reason a lot of people are considering, you know, it's a failed season, I think had we been going into the end of the season at 6-6, and then won the last 3 to get us into the playoffs as the 6th seed, I think a lot more fans would have been like, "Oh, the season was great." But since we lost the last 4 games of the season, the last 3 games of the regular season, and then in the playoffs, I think a lot more fans are quick to say this season was a failure just because how the season ended. We remember what happened last, not what happened earlier. So there for a while, the Lions had a winning streak. They had 2 separate winning streaks going. They won 3 in a row from week 5 to week 7, and then they won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They won 5 in a row between weeks 9 and 14. They had the bye week in between there. They had 1 loss, and they were 8-1 in 9 games during the season. You know, a lot of fans we were expected to be not expected. We were at that point in the driver's seat for the number 2 seed of the division or the conference. We were looking like we were going to win the NFC North. We had to win 1 more game. The Packers just had to lose 1 more. It didn't happen. We lost the last 3. The Packers won the last 3. So we ended up coming in 2nd place in the NFC North. Those are the only things I can think were disappointments. You know, if you're talking strictly from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, I'd say this season is a success. But if you take it from the midpoint of the season, or if you take it from week 14 to week 17 in the wild card, the season I could agree there that it might be a failure just because we were, you know, the expectations were so high at that point, and we dropped that. But from the beginning of the season, I got to say this season was a success. I didn't see the Lions doing so good in the preseason, and I predicted, I think, 7-9, so not too far off. I was a little more pessimistic about it, but 7-9, 2nd place in the NFC North. We had a 3-3 conference record. We got swept by the Packers. We split with the Bears, and then we swept the Vikings. I did not think it was going to go that way at all. I thought maybe we were going to sweep the Bears, get swept by the Vikings, and split with the Packers. None of that happened. We split the Bears, swept the Vikings, got swept by the Packers. Completely opposite of everything I thought was going to happen. So I mean, I'm pretty happy with that, though. I don't think it was bad at all. I think it was a good season. Definitely something to build upon. This was, I think, more of if this was a rebuild season, a lot of people are saying the Lions were in rebuilding mode this year. 9-7, 6th seed wild card, I will take that as a rebuilding year. Myself personally, I view it more now as a reloading year. We were just reloading, getting new guys in. Next year, I think this builds better things for next year. But fun fact, when we coming into week 5, when we were 1-3 at that point, since 1990, 183 teams started 1-3. This is before the season. These are stats from before the season. I couldn't find any that were updated, but I'm sorry. And out of those 183 teams that started 1-3, only 26 of them ended up making the playoffs. The Lions and the Dolphins both this year for sure added 2 more onto that, as they both were 1-3 4 games into the season. They both ended up making the wild card and then losing pretty bad. We got beat up pretty bad by the Seahawks, and the Dolphins got beat up pretty bad by the Steelers. So that is an accomplishment. That is something to be proud of. We were a 1-3 team. We managed to turn it around, win 8 out of our next 9. Unfortunately, we got beaten the last 3 games of the season. So to finish out 9-7, go from 1-3 to 9-7, I think is a pretty good. You know, that's 8 wins and 4 losses. That's usually pretty good. You're winning 2/3 of your games at that point. We won 8 of the 12. So, you know, you would do that all season long. You're 12-14 or 11-5. 12. Yeah, okay, you got it. You're a good team if you win 2/3 of your games all season long, for the most part. Anyways, started out week 1 against the Colts. We won that game 39-35. That was the first of the 8 come from behind victories we had in the fourth quarter after, getting a deficit in the fourth. This is the one where many people, a lot of the media people were like, maybe the Lions can actually do something without Calvin. Stafford doesn't look like he's, a bad quarterback without Calvin, like a lot of people had predicted in the beginning of the year, or in the preseason. Then we had the Tennessee Titans at home, and then we lost that one, and people were like, there's the same old Lions. What a bad team. Those Lions giving us hope. And then we went to Green Bay, and we lost that one after we managed to get it down to, it was a touch. We ended up losing by a touchdown, 34-27. That game we managed to make it a little closer than it was the whole game towards the end. It looked like we may have a comeback there, but it was ultimately squashed. The Packers went on to beat us. And everyone's like, it's the Packers. Yeah, the Packers are still the Packers. But at that point, Aaron Rodgers was not playing that great since middle half of last season, 2015. So, a lot of people were like, maybe the Lions have a chance if they play more like they did against the Colts than they did the Titans. They played more like they did against the Titans in the beginning of the game. And then in the second half, fourth quarter, they turned it around and played like they did against the Colts. The Lions could never, this is consistent throughout the whole season, Lions could only played one full game of football, one full 4 quarters of football, and that was against the Saints, which we ended up winning. I'll get to that more in a little bit. Then we went to Chicago. We lost to Chicago 14-7. This is at the point people were just throwing themselves off the bandwagon, throwing themselves off the boat. Stop drinking the Kool-Aid entirely. The Lions, this team's going to be bad. This is at this point where I said the Lions might win 4 or 5 games the rest of the season. Then, we had the Eagles at home as a game that a lot of people were like, the Eagles at that point were a perfect 4-0. They hadn't lost yet. Carson Wentz looked great. And then the Lions beat them 24-23 after they picked off Wentz at the very last bit of the game, gave him his first, it was one of his first couple interceptions, if not the first. I can't remember exactly, but we then had the LA Rams. We made Case Keenum look like a Hall of Fame quarterback, but Stafford still managed to win the game with the fourth quarter drive, 131-28. Then we had the Redskins at home. We had 3 straight home games, and we won all 3 of them. I did not expect us to win those. I expected us maybe to win the Rams game. We ended up winning against all 3 teams. And effectively, a lot of people are saying, well, the Lions, they don't beat the good teams. They beat the bad teams. If you look at it, when the Lions are playing these teams, at the time, when we beat the Colts were considered to be, a playoff caliber team. They had Andrew Luck as quarterback, and Andrew Luck, the media loves to fondle Andrew Luck's balls, and, they love to be all over Andrew Luck, but we beat them. Like, people are still kind of pushing the Lions down. We lost to the Titans, who ended up being better than they were supposed to be. Marcus Mariota looks legit. That broken leg at the end of the season, hopefully that heals up. I like him. I hope the Titans, I'm okay with any AFC team if you're not the Patriots. So as long as you're not the Patriots, I root for you as an AFC team. The Packers, the Packers are a playoff team. The Bears, that was our worst loss of the season. They were considered, this is the bottom of the barrel. The Bears are bad. The Bears just were bad pretty much the whole season. Then the Eagles were like the first team that were like, they could be a playoff team that we beat. And our loss helped push them out of the playoffs. We beat the Eagles, I talked about that. We beat the Redskins, which that loss also helped push them out of the playoffs. The Redskins were half a game out of the playoffs this year. Had they had somebody tied, they would have made it in the playoffs. I know that. I can't remember where that had to happen, but if the Redskins had somebody else tie, the Redskins would have been in the playoffs because we were able to. They lost to us. We were able to push them from being half a game in the playoffs to half a game out of the playoffs. So yes, we do beat good teams. We help push them out of the playoffs, but their records just look worse because they're not a playoff team. They may finish 8-8 instead of 9-7 and out of the playoffs, and it shows that they're not a winning team at that point. I hate that stat, how the Lions are bad against good teams. I mean, yeah, if it's the Patriots, yes, we're bad against the Patriots. Everyone's bad against the Patriots. So that's just something that always annoys me. We had the Houston Texans at home, the game we lost. We made Brock Osweiler look like he was the quarterback the Texans signed him for. We lost that one 13-20. And then we turned it around and we beat the Vikings, who were like on fire at this point. They had a couple losses, but they weren't like terrible. They were, Sam Bradford looked like he may have turned his career around instead of just being the placeholder for Teddy Bridgewater while he was out. It looked like he might actually be the guy. And then we beat them on that one was in overtime. We beat them in overtime. That's Golden Tate's toe touching, spin, dive into the end zone. He made a couple of defenders look like idiots in that play. We won that one 22-16 in overtime. Then we went into our bye week with a 5-4 record. We started out 1-3. Now we're 5-4. It looked a lot better than it had been at that point. A lot of Lions fans now had hope because we're like, oh, we got the Jaguars coming up. We got the Vikings coming up. The Saints, the Saints had a bad record this year, but Drew Brees is still amazing. So that was a questionable game. Then we had the Bears. We're like, that's 4 games we could win. We could be 9-4. And that's what happened. We ended up beating the Jaguars. That was the game was a lot closer than it looked. And the final score indicated. The final score only indicates a touchdown game, but the Jaguars stayed in it most of the game. It was a 26-19 win. And we had the Vikings again. We won again at the very end of the game, 16-13. Matt Prater kicked a beautiful long field goal to put it into overtime. And then he kicked. I can't remember which Vikings game he kicked the long field goal to put it in overtime, or the one he kicked for the win. I think it was the second one he kicked for a win for sure, as 16-13 win. Then we had the Saints. This was our best game. Like I've said. The only thing we couldn't do was get the ball in the end zone, but we had Matt Prater who kicked like 5 field goals this game and ended up giving us a 28-13 win. We made Drew Brees look like he wasn't Drew Brees. The one game we broke the streak of touchdowns at home for him, or at least one touchdown in a game at home for him. So that was great for us. Then we had the Bears, and we got revenge for our loss. We beat them 20-17, and then we're like, you know what? We're 9-4. We win one more game. We have the NFC North in hand. If we can manage to win out, we get the 2nd seed, and then we get and a little help. Maybe if we get one loss and some help, we can still get the 2nd seed. Have a bye week. Lions fans were ecstatic. This is something that hasn't happened ever in team history. Well, I mean, maybe if you go way back to like the 1950s, 1960s, maybe. But so we went to the New York to play the Giants, and then we lost 16-17. And then we had the Cowboys, and then we lost in primetime 21-42. And then primetime again against the Packers at home for the NFC North. I mean, at least this way, maybe the 3 seed, we can get the 4 seed, and we lost 24-31. Ended up pushing us 9-7, the 6th seed, playing the Seattle Seahawks. So towards the end of the season, yes, we disappointed. I'm going to attribute that to we had a bunch of injuries across the board. It's never an excuse, but it is a reason. The Lions had a bunch of injuries. They had a bunch of guys standing up in these positions that they should not have had. That is something on the general manager. Bob Quinn's great. He only had the one off season to try to implement the guys he wanted. So I won't hold that too much against him. Like I said, it was more kind of a reloading / rebuilding, if you want to call it a rebuilding year. And so they did not have all the pieces they needed or the pieces they wanted in place. They had to rely on guys like Asa Jackson, Cresden Butler for the corners that were getting a lot of playing time. And when those guys are getting a lot of playing time, you're not in a good position. Quandre Diggs went down, Slay had injuries. I think Nevin Lawson at some point went down. It was not good in the secondary at all for the Lions this year. So, and then we lost 6-26 in the playoffs. Towards the end of the season, we had a lot of trouble getting points on the board. That's kind of something all year. I didn't really expect it. I didn't even really notice it during the season. It was only until I started looking at the numbers here that I noticed how bad we were during that stretch, offensively or throughout the whole season. This gives you an idea of how close all these games were. 13 of the 16 games the Lions played this year were within 7 points. That's insane. And then I said like the 8 fourth quarter comebacks. To even accentuate how close these games were, the average points the Lions scored every game was 22.625. The average points the Lions defense gave up every game was 22.375. That is an incredibly close number. I think that's 0.25 points away from each other. So that's not a huge swing at all. Like a lot of these games were just won in the last drives, the 8 fourth quarter comebacks. We didn't have very many games where we held on from beginning to end. We only had the one win where we didn't have a fourth quarter comeback, and that was against the Saints. So that's something definitely Lions need to work on, being more consistently about getting points on the board quickly and often throughout the whole game, leading a game the entire way. A lot of the teams we played this year, some of them were weak, and we should have led these games, like the Rams. What other team? I know the Rams for sure. The Bears. we should have led both those games from beginning to end. We played down to our opposition. That's what happens in the NFL. We're getting into the team statistics. I'm not going to go into players too much. I'll say a couple things about each player, but no, not each player, but things about different players. But if I go through all the players, this is going to be a 30-minute video, and I don't want that. Total offense, the team ranked 21st in the NFL. This one surprised me. I thought we had a good offense. Then I started looking more into it. We had the 11th ranked passing offense. Okay, yep, that's pretty typical for a Lions team. That's actually a little lower. Usually, with the Jim Schwartz Lions offenses, we were up in the top 5s almost every year, at least top 10s, passing-wise. And then I looked at the rushing yards because this is what really pushed us down to the 21st. We were the 30th ranked team in rushing yards. That was a problem all season. As soon as Amir Abdullah went down, you can't rely on Theo Riddick to be a guy to hit between the tackles hard. It wasn't until the end of the season when Zach Zenner started to really get going. In the first halves, we didn't let him carry the ball much in the second halves at all. But, it was like, here, Zach, run at the ball. Okay, now give it back to us. We don't want you to run it in the second half. We're going to give it to Stafford and, with his hurt finger, and we're going to try to air it out against these teams that are not letting us air it out. So yes, our rushing yards definitely held back the team. That's, I think, something to do with the line, too. The line is built more to protect Stafford. A lot of young guys. There's not really one of them that you would point out as a road grader type offensive lineman, which you usually need to have a successful offensive line for rushing. Points per game, we ranked 20th. Like I said, we didn't score as many points as I thought we could. This offense, I think, is built to be more of a legitimate threat, and it wasn't this year. We had it in bits and pieces, but we didn't get it a whole game like we really needed it. Moving on to the defense, I thought these were actually a little higher than I thought, because I thought our defense was pretty much trash all year. I didn't like them pretty much the whole year. The defensive line was weak. A lot of those guys need to go, and we can get some new guys in. Linebackers, we had the injuries with Levy, and Whitehead had a couple injuries where we were starting guys like Antoine Williams, a rookie, a 5th-round draft pick. I think he was 5th. He might have been later than that. But a guy who wasn't really expected to have a huge role. He was playing. He was a guy that we were like, he's going to be a project. We're going to work on him. He's just going to be a special teamer. He was getting starts, and really wasn't prepared for it. He did decently enough to not be cut. We had Kyle Van Noy, who ended up getting cut or getting traded for a 7th-round draft pick. Josh Bynes came back from injury. He played decently. And Tahir Whitehead played good enough. He was ranked like one of the worst middle linebackers in Pro Football Focus, but they're a bunch of I don't like them at all. I don't understand their ranking systems. I just think it's kind of more of a name-based thing. So I don't consider them to be very legitimate, but every football outlet out there is now. A lot of their stuff, like last year, they wanted to say Ziggy Ansah wasn't a great player at all. His sacks were clean-up sacks. In this season, he didn't have a lot. He had dealing with the ankle injury. It wasn't until the end of the season where in the last against the Cowboys, Packers, and the Seahawks, he got 4 sacks in those 3 games. You got to see a little bit of the old Ziggy coming back, which is hopefully good for next year. Levy started playing pretty good at the end of the season when he came back, so hopefully that's a sign for next year. Can you build upon that? But defensively, we gave up the 18th. I hate trying to say these. Defensive yards given up, we were 18th, meaning we were in the bottom half of. We were giving up more yards, and we were not in a good spot for that. Passing yards given up, 19th. We were making quarterbacks look fantastic all year long. We allowed it was an NFL high for a single season, 72.7 completion or something insane like that. That's not good at all when quarterbacks are completing 72% of their passes. Rushing yards given up, we were 18th, so we stayed pretty much down there towards almost the 20s, low teens, high teens in that area. Points given up, we were 13th. This is definitely a bend but don't break defense. And then the turnover differential was 20th. This one was really telling because I couldn't remember a lot of, honestly, turnovers the Lions committed. And so when I started looking into it, interceptions thrown, we were 10th. Fumbles lost, we were 3rd. And total giveaways, we were 5th. We were not hardly giving the ball over on offense. We were being extremely safe, and we were playing fantastically on offense. But because we ranked 23rd in interceptions, 29th in fumbles recovered, and 28th in total takeaways, that just destroyed our turnover margin. We had a -1 turnover ratio, which anytime you're negative, it's not good, of course. But we need big playmakers on defense. You got Slay, who's good, Quinn, who's good, but beyond them, we really don't have guys that are picking the ball off when they need to, creating fumbles, picking them up. You know, we need more of that kind of stuff. We need more defensive playmakers on this Lions team. And so I'll be pointing out some guys we could target in free agency, the drafts, in the coming episodes. I'm going to keep on doing this stuff. We're going to go on and do a, throughout the offseason, because I know a lot of my subscribers are Lions fans. So I'm starting to try to branch out more. We're going to do some top 5 and bottom 5 Lions lists of best players at each position, coaches, seasons, that kind of stuff, drafts. And then we're also going to do, I'm going to highlight players who are free agents, who could leave, what we could do to replace them, or do we bring them back, that kind of stuff. And so I plan on keeping a lot of Lions things on the channel. So as a team this year, I'm actually pretty impressed with what they were able to do. Marvin Jones came in, played pretty well. He did say, though, he was pretty disappointed in his year. It was 55 catches, and I think he only had 4 touchdowns. Anquan Bolden was our leading touchdown receiver, and he's right now a free agent. And behind him, Theo Riddick was the next guy who had the most touchdowns, and that's definitely something that needs to be fixed. Eric Ebron had a good year. I'm going to highlight Eric Ebron. I think he's definitely turning into that number 1 pick that everyone thought he should be playing like. He still had some drops. He needs to work on that still. Golden Tate broke 1,000 yards again this year. He had over 90 catches. I think it's his 3rd straight year leading the team in receptions, and when you have Calvin Johnson on your team, that's pretty insane for 2 years. And Theo Riddick had a good receiving year until the end of the year when he got put on IR with a wrist injury. Lions had 5 players with over 50 catches, which is almost unheard of at that point. That's all we got for this episode, the season review. I might go more into player depth in a different episode. I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet. That's just going to take way too much time to put in this video. So if you like the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave some comments. And if you got any ideas for different videos you want me to do, anything like that, leave those in the comments as well. I'll look at them, and if I can do them, I'll do them. So, yeah, I will see you guys in the next video, which is coming out shortly. See ya.